Hi, and welcome to worship. I'm Michelle Hopp. I serve as the pastor for Poinettes Community United Methodist Church, and I'm glad you're here to join me today. And this is Thanksgiving week, that American tradition where we gather together with our friends and our families, usually around a big turkey dinner. And so it's a week that we often think about gratitude and count our blessings and think about the things that we are grateful for. And so today, the theme is going to be making room at our table this Thanksgiving for people out of the ordinary. Who can you invite into your life, into your world, to your dinner, to your house, to your table, to create new relationships and to share your love and your kindness with? That's what we're going to look at today. And so I want to just tell you about an event I went to this last summer. As you can tell, I had an event today as a chaplain. We had Stuff the Squad at the Piggly Wiggly, where people would buy extra groceries and put it in the squad cars. We had 3 of them available. We stuffed 2 of them to the brim. And then we go and bring all of the food to the local food pantry. What a blessing these people in the community who are giving us so much from themselves of food to help other people. But I was at another event called Cone with a Cop this summer. This community has really great events for its people. And I was talking to a resident there, and she was telling me that on holidays, what she does is she cooks extra food and invites the police officers who are on call to come and eat with her family. And if they can't make it because of a call, she's always sure that she has takeout containers so that they can eat on the run or whatever they need to do, because she says nobody should have to be alone without family, without friends, without people on the holidays. This woman knows how to make room at her table. Now, Christians have a long tradition of gathering around food. And think of all the potlucks that you may have enjoyed in churches over your years. That's something that I look forward to. It's a time where you have conversation and camaraderie, and you eat some of the best food you've ever eaten, because those potlucks, the people bring their best recipes too. So you never leave hungry. And it's just a joy to be with the people that you love from your church family. You end up being well-fed, filled with laughter and joy, a sense of belonging. Now, the fellowship of a small church like our church is much like that of the earliest Christian churches that were described in the book of Acts. So we're going to take a look at a passage to kind of give us an idea of what that might have looked like. So in Acts chapter 2, verse 42, we read, "The believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers." This is what an early church was like. The believers devoted themselves to fellowship. But what is fellowship? Well, it has 2 important components: deepening relationships and developing common priorities. In the earliest Christian churches, fellowship always included meals. The Jewish Christians who founded these churches inspired this practice. So the first course in an early church meal was always bread. And think about when you go to a fancier restaurant, what do they always bring to your table while you're waiting for your food? It's always bread. Sometimes it's soup and salad, but it's almost always a basket of just fabulous bread and butter. And it's just, sometimes you eat so much of the bread, you don't have room for your main course because the bread is always so good, especially when you're hungry. And in the early church, the leader of the church meeting would bless the bread, and to remind the group that God provides us with our food. So the leader would bless the bread, break the bread, and pass it around to everybody. Now, during the Last Supper, Jesus used this Jewish tradition and added meaning to the breaking of bread. So at the very beginning of the meal, he blessed the bread, he broke the bread, but before he passed it, he said, "Take and eat. This is my body." You hear that in communion, don't you? Often, bread was the only food that the church group ate when they gathered together. And after eating the bread, the people would have fellowship, encouraging each other to live a good and godly life. And this God-focused, loving fellowship was the glue that kept those early churches together. Now, who do you break your bread with? Who do you eat with? Who do you fellowship with? Jesus modeled this. He modeled this bread breaking, showed us what it should look like. He surrounded himself with community because he understood how vital fellowship would be to his disciples after he left them and went to heaven. But who did he share his meals with? Sinners, tax collectors, prostitutes, even self-righteous religious leaders. He sought out the marginalized, the powerless, the lost, the new people in town, the strangers. And these people were often immigrants and often were poor. To Jesus, inclusion in the community, which was the kingdom of heaven, was so important that after the Last Supper, he gave his disciples one more new commandment. We find that in John chapter 13, verses 34 through 35. Jesus said, "I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. And by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Now, one faith tradition, the Moravian Church, and I think that there is one in DeForest. I've never been to it, but I'm pretty sure there is one. The Moravian Church shares a tradition called a love feast. And the founder of Methodism, John Wesley, he befriended Moravian believers and participated in one of these love feasts in Savannah, Georgia. Here's this Englishman who took a ship over to America trying to do some missionary work. He runs across some Moravians on the ship, and then he joins them in this love feast in Georgia, of all places. And this was in the 1700s. And this love feast and the religion of the Moravians, greatly influenced his theology. So what is a love feast? During a love feast, people gather over a shared meal of bread and water. They pray, they read scriptures, they offer testimonies, like, "I saw God doing this in my life," or "God put this person in my life," or "God put me in the right place at the right time." So they share testimonies. They enjoy Christian fellowship and a spirit of unity and love. Now, today, it's a little different. It's not bread and water. Instead, the Moravians, for their love feasts, they have sweet buns and coffee. Doesn't that sound good? Kind of like a coffee break or a fellowship time. They pray, they sing hymns, they listen to music, and they share testimony through holy conversation. Now, about a decade ago, I participated in a love feast during a United Women in Faith class. And we shared crackers and juice. We read scripture, we sang hymns, we prayed, we had holy conversations. It was a really beautiful experience. And it was really important for me at the time and my friends because none of us were pastors. And a love feast can be done by by non-pastors. Holy Communion, you need to have a pastor involved to some degree at least in part of it, at least in blessing the elements for you. But if you don't have access to a pastor and you want to have this type of a meal, this holy meal, you can do a love feast. And you can use crackers or sweet buns or even danishes or whatever, and then some sort of something to drink, a beverage. And you can do this on your own. It's similar to communion, but not quite the same. So even if you've never experienced an official love feast, I would argue that you're actually having one when you come to church early and you enjoy the fellowship time where you have treats and coffee or juice, and then you are having a holy conversation. That's a love feast. Or if you ever attended a church potluck and you enjoy that fabulous food, and usually, what is it, lemonade, coffee, and just had a wonderful time just talking and loving people and growing in your relationship with each other. You are, both in fellowship before church and in potlucks, you're coming together in love and in unity to live out the gospel of Jesus Christ by welcoming new people, caring for each other, reaching out to people in need, and encouraging each other in Christian faith. You are loving others the way Jesus loves you. You are living out Jesus' new commandment, which is what? People will know you because you love one another. They'll know you. They'll know you are followers, you are believers, you are Christians by your love. Loving people means reaching out to new people. It's really easy to love people that you know already and trust and feel comfortable with. Because Jesus wants to include everybody at his kingdom table, and we should too. Now, Isaiah the prophet prophesied a kingdom feast that God would prepare for his believers. And we can find that in Isaiah chapter 25, verse 6. And this is what it says. On this mountain, the Lord of hosts will make for all peoples a feast of rich wine, a feast of well-aged wines, a rich food filled of marrow, of well-aged wines strained clear. So whenever believers share a meal together, no matter how simple, if it's bread or water, or if it's a really fancy potluck, we are looking forward to this hope of a great kingdom feast with God in heaven. Should we just share this gift of hope with our closest friends and our friends from church and our family members? No, we should invite everybody to our table like Jesus did, including the new person in town, the stranger, the lonely, our at-home members, and the marginalized people in our community. You know, our society has been moving away from practicing inclusion and love, and instead we seem to thrive on divisiveness. The sad result of this divisiveness is that many people live in loneliness and isolation. It is up to us to make a change. I encourage you to make room at your table for more people this Thanksgiving. Think of at least one new person that you can invite to dinner. You remember that Poignant woman who will be cooking extra food this week for the police officers who are on duty? Who can you invite to your table? It's important because Jesus wants everyone to be present at his kingdom feast in heaven. Make room at your table. And I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. God bless you.